grandma brought over 2 puppies, but only one could stay. One of them eagerly jumped all over the boy, but the boy didn't react at all. He didn't seem to like it much. Yet when grandma saw this, she was absolutely delighted, and quickly called her son and daughter-in-law over, because the boy had been diagnosed with autism since early childhood. The fact that he wasn't scared of or repelled by the dog was already a huge relief to them. The couple decided on the spot to keep this dog. Then grandma asked her grandson to give the puppy a name. Looking at his favorite show on TV, Thomas and Friends, Kyle blurted it out.
Thomas!
And of all people, the happiest about Thomas's arrival was his mom. She pinned all her hopes on this little creature. Because of her son's autism, she had been emotionally drained for years. For example, the day she had just walked into the walk-in closet when Kyle locked her in from the outside. By the time she realized what had happened and called out to her son for help, Kyle had already wandered off. The thought that the front door was still wide open sent her into a panic. She threw her weight against the door, grabbed a tool and tried to pry it open, but nothing worked. Soon after, the sound of a glass shattering came from the living room. Meanwhile, in the living room, Kyle seemed completely cut off from the world. No matter how loudly his mother screamed, he didn't react at all. He calmly sipped his juice and watched his beloved Thomas and Friends. Hearing the TV on, his mother finally let out a breath of relief. At least her son hadn't run outside. She thought the ordeal would end once her husband got home from work, but then a gust of wind slammed the front door shut. Her anxiety shot right back up, and now, no TV sound could be heard from the living room. The blare of a car horn rang out at the worst possible time. Imagining the worst-case scenario, she completely broke down. When she could no longer hear any sound from outside, she sank into utter despair. Just then, the door finally swung open. Seeing her son standing there perfectly fine, she pulled him into her arms, eyes red and brimming with tears. And this wasn't even a one-time occurrence. So for her, just having her child grow up safe and sound was already the greatest wish she could ask for. Kyle's congenital autism made it impossible for him to connect with anyone. Sometimes, even his own parents were shut out. And if anything didn't go his way, he would throw a fit, regardless of the setting, and even engage in self-harming behavior. But when a child is sick, it's the parents who suffer. They had tried everything, until grandma suggested they adopt a dog, which led to the scene at the beginning of the video. That was the first time Kyle had shown curiosity about anything outside himself. But that night, he had another episode. Instead of going to bed, he dragged his blanket downstairs. Under his family's confused gaze, he spread the blanket inside the doghouse and gently carried Thomas inside.
Bedtime, Thomas!
And with that one simple sentence, the family was stunned, because it was the first time Kyle had ever taken the initiative to speak. Early the next morning, he was playing with Thomas in the living room. Woken by the noise, his father hurried over to share the good news with his wife. It was the first time their son had played so happily since birth. In that moment, the ruckus sounded like music to the parents' ears. And ever since Thomas came into their home, Kyle had become like a different person. He even took the initiative to feed Thomas. His mom patiently guided him. Then his father came in and noticed that Thomas had made a mess on the floor.
Thomas, wait!
The mother seized the moment to teach her son. Going to the bathroom is something you do outside, so the house doesn't get dirty and smelly. Kyle watched, half understanding. To help him grasp it better, she took him outside. After Thomas did his business, the father handed Thomas a snack to reward him. Kyle looked thoughtful, as if he had understood something. The next day at school, he was playing alone in the corner as usual. The teacher invited him to join the other kids.
No.
Facing his rejection, the teacher had already become accustomed to it. But then Kyle suddenly said he needed to use the bathroom. The teacher stared at him in disbelief, because changing the pants of these autistic children had become part of the teacher's daily routine. But she never expected that the most severely autistic child in the class would actually ask to use the toilet on his own. After he was done, Kyle asked the teacher for a reward. Seeing that outstretched hand, the teacher immediately agreed, and kept telling him what a good boy he was. That day after school, Kyle brought home his very first drawing. It was very simple, but his mom and grandma were thrilled to tears. Thomas wasn't just healing Kyle, he was also mending the relationship between his parents, because the two of them had argued endlessly about whether to have a second child. But with Thomas's arrival, the family gradually became more harmonious, and they decided to just let things take their natural course. With the dog by his side, Kyle began to change, little by little, but it was still limited to Thomas. Whenever the adults said a word he didn't like, he would erupt again.
So proud of you. Don't say proud!
No, Kyle, it's a good thing. It's a good thing that I'm proud of you. It's okay.
Don't say okay!
Watching her son revert to his old self, his mom didn't know what to do. A wave of helplessness washed over her. When Kyle threw a tantrum, nothing the couple did could calm him down. Looking at Thomas nearby, his father suddenly got an idea. He quickly started mimicking Thomas's voice, saying that seeing Kyle cry made him really worried. To their surprise, Kyle immediately quieted down, and ran over to apologize to Thomas.
I'm sorry.
So, can we go for our run now?
Okay, come on, Thomas.
This seemingly absurd tactic actually worked on their son. The couple was stunned. They didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Without realizing it, Thomas had become the bridge between them and their son. His mom felt resigned, but compared to her son's former indifference, she could only count her blessings and be content. That night, however, when Kyle came to call Thomas to bed, a few casual words brought tears to his parents' eyes.
Thomas, come to bed. Stop playing. name was Dad.
His father thought he'd misheard because it was the first time his son had ever called him dad. Seeing this, the mother felt extremely envious, watching her son about to leave. She tried saying goodnight to her son too.
Good night, Kyle.
Night, Mom.
Since the day he was born, Kyle had never once called out to his parents. In that moment, all the love they had given finally received a response. Even better, his mom was pregnant with their second child. If they could have a little brother or sister to keep Kyle company, the couple could finally breathe easier. To help more children with autism, the parents also agreed to let Kyle bring Thomas to school. They were worried some kids might be scared, but to their surprise, the moment they saw the dog, the children opened up instantly, vying to interact with Thomas. And Kyle, who had always been in the corner, unexpectedly joined in with his classmates. Everything seemed to be heading in the right direction, but this hard-won happiness came as swiftly as the tide, and left just as suddenly. One day, his mom got a phone call. Kyle's grandma was in the hospital, in critical condition. She rushed her son along, hoping to see her mother one last time before she passed. But Kyle had another episode right then. Left with no choice, his mom pushed him in a stroller to the hospital, but because they'd lost so much time along the way, they ultimately didn't make it in time to see grandma. His mom broke down. She never expected that her mother, who had been laughing and chatting just days before, would leave so suddenly. Kyle still didn't understand what death meant, so at grandma's funeral, his face showed no trace of sadness. He only recognized his favorite toy on the casket. His dad told him they could get it if they walked all the way to the end together. And so, with the family by her side, his mom saw grandma through to the end. After the funeral, his mom was so consumed by grief that she couldn't pull herself together, and the grief caused her to lose the baby she was carrying. Soon, it was time for Kyle to go back to school. His mom pulled herself together and prepared to take him, but after the break, Kyle didn't want to go at all. He wanted to stay home and play with Thomas. When he raised his hand as if to hit someone, his mom had no choice but to hold him in her arms. Hearing the commotion, his dad came into the living room. He held Kyle and tried the same trick again, imitating Thomas's voice, hoping to calm his son down, but Kyle broke free and kicked Thomas hard. Thomas had no idea what he'd done wrong. He could only whimper and lie on the floor in confusion. His mom completely lost it. All the emotions she'd been bottling up over the past few days finally exploded. It was the first time she had ever lost her temper at her son like that. The loss of her mother, the miscarriage, and her son's behavior. It was all suffocating her. But once her anger subsided, she regretted it. No matter what, she shouldn't have taken all her emotions out on an autistic child. So, right in front of Kyle, they put a bandage on Thomas, telling Kyle that the dog was in pain now. Meanwhile, his mom pretended to be on the phone, saying she was going to send Thomas back. Only then did Kyle realize his mistake. He begged Thomas not to leave, promising to love him well from now on. But after that day, Thomas suddenly fell ill. Even the most delicious food lost its appeal to him. He spent all day lying listlessly in the yard, refusing to budge no matter who tried to hold him. They realized something was seriously wrong, and took him to the vet. But the vet gave them a dire prognosis on the spot. None of them had expected he would be so gravely ill. In their eyes, Thomas was no longer just a dog. He was the light that had saved their son and their family. They couldn't bear to imagine what this family would become if they lost him. After surgery, Thomas slipped into a semi-conscious state. The vet said if he didn't make it through the night, the outlook would be grim. After school, Kyle gently stroked Thomas, telling him that if it hurt too much, he would go to heaven, just like grandma had. Even though it's a nice place, I want you to stay with me. Children express love in such simple, honest ways. But seeing this, his father grew even more worried. They were terrified of losing Thomas, and terrified that Kyle would revert to his old self. Perhaps the family's sincerity moved heaven. The next day, Thomas walked into the room full of life and energy. He wagged his tail at Kyle as if reborn, as if answering that he would stay by his side. At the end of the story, the whole family went to a park. With Thomas by his side, Kyle finally opened up, and said those long-awaited words to his mom.
And he says he loves his mum.
He does, darling, doesn't he?
And Kyle loves his mum.
His mom's eyes welled up instantly. She walked forward in disbelief, and asked her son what he had just said.
What did you say, Kyle?
Kyle loves his mum.
The ice had melted, love had arrived, her nose stung, and she pulled Kyle tightly into her arms. All the grievances she had endured over the years vanished in that very moment. This is a true story. Carl passed 7 high school exit exams at the age of 17, and went on to study childcare at university.